Cinda's class. I have her syllabus. She has some pretty interesting notes. Anyway, it's here. It's here. If you know her or if anyway, I have it. So how'd your week go? What was homework? 2 ponder questions and 1 nasty assignment. Did anybody do the nasty assignment? Did you really? I don't mean to be awesome. Awesome. What did you find out about that?
About the assignment?
No, about just what did you learn from doing that? Was it
I feel like a lot of the blessings are like interchangeable. They like go with one another. That I felt like most of it like stemmed from the scriptures. Like that article like kept referring back to the scriptures, and then how if you read the scriptures, it'll like influence every other aspect. Like we'll want to do family prayer more, and FHE, go to the temple, and keep it family, like all those different things that if we can really like, that's what I got from it.
Yes,
really,
yeah.
like, focus on the scriptures, that's gonna be able to give us like that window to everything else that we want.
So did that make you want to read the scriptures more?
Yeah.
Or I mean,
I actually started going in. I was reading that article, and they were talking about, and they can talk about Adam and Eve and how, like before they didn't have, happiness or joy, and I'm like, really? Did they really not have like, the Lord put people like, on the earth and not be happy? So like it stemmed me to like try to like research more, and I was like talking to my husband and my dad about it.
And what do you think about it?
We were going back and forth about it because I was like, I think that they were happy, but it just wasn't like the fullness happiness. Like, because they talk about them being like little kids and stuff like that, and little kids, they're happy and joyful, but in a sense they don't necessarily know how to like describe it. Like, yes, this is what happiness is. I'm happy, or I'm sad, or whatever, And so my dad had a good perspective on it and said that like, they were going and like naming the animals and like doing, tending the garden and doing like all those things, and he was like, they're probably just doing it over and over for, we don't know how long it was, but like however long it was.
We don't know.
And he's like, after a while, that probably got really boring. And so he was like, Eve, she's a woman. They're a little more reasonable. He said that, I think that they had some reasoning, like, abilities in them. And so, when it came to the point where Satan was tempting her, that she was just like, logically, this makes sense. Or, we have to, procreate. We have these other commandments. How are we going to do that if, we don't have the knowledge that we need in order to be able to do those things? And so that made a little more sense. But I still think that there was some amount of like happiness, I guess, or joy that they had in there, just not like the fullness like we have now. Like people always say like, I never knew true joy till after I had kids or things like that. And so it's a different kind. Like you feel like you might be happy before them, but it's like fuller, if that makes sense. It's a different kind of joy, a different kind of happiness, once you have those kids. And
I think that's good insight.
So.
I do. I think that's really good insight. Did you think about the other 2, or were you just busy doing the hard one?
The ponder one?
Uh-huh.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I just, like sometimes on Sabbath day, I just feel like it just kind of goes with motions, and it take really long hours. And so I was like, hey, we need to be more purposeful. And I had like talked to the kids about it, like what do they think? And they're like, okay, like, if we watch TV, only like scripture or like, church videos and like stuff like that, which is kind of what we already have at that level. And then even just having like more like kid time, more like one-on-one time, and discussing things with them, and then as far as like personal prayers, just like repetition. I feel like sometimes when I wake up in the morning, like I'm so tired, and so like I'm trying to like think of things, and my brain hasn't like started to function yet, and so like just really focusing on repetition. We started doing, as you talked about last week, like talking to the kids beforehand. Okay, like who needs like to be prayed for? Like what kinds of like blessings do you need like this week, or do you need any help? I have an injury and stuff. So the kids are like, okay, we gotta pray for mommy and stuff like that, or like if they have like a test at school or something. So they're becoming more aware of like the things and really try to think, okay, what do I have going on during the day, or like the next day when it's at night, of things that we need to pray about.
Very good. Very good.
And in the scripture thing with my little son, wrote his name. I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh, it's not good. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot.
Don't worry, they get their turn too. Don't feel bad.
I got the masking tape and wrote his name on the front of scripture because I was always like, oh, he can just look on with us because he's in kindergarten, so he's just like learning how to read, and usually he's out of it, so he's just getting him to sit there is enough. It's hard enough, but he got super excited about it, and he's like, oh, these are my scriptures, and he's like, oh, can I take these to church on Sunday? And so we like got a little bag for him. I mean, it was just the Book of Mormon. But still, just like him having that and my ownership, like he got like super excited about it, and he like has it on his little dresser next to his bed, and it was really cute.
Absolutely. I mean, with a child, the beginning is to feel the ownership that these are mine, and I can touch them and feel them, and they're nobody else's. This one is mine.
Yeah.
And then they want to, then they'll want to learn what's in them.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Who else? Yes.
Well, I tried a few more than one. And it went pretty good. I focused mostly on pondering more in the scriptures.
Good.
And then Sabbath day, we're not too bad, but I wanted to do that. But what I really found throughout the week was that I was reminded again how real Satan is when you try to do better. Like our Sunday was like a nightmare. And it was the worst Sunday we've had in forever. Like, we get up, we get ready, we get breakfast, go to church, that went okay. And we come home, and it was like everybody was going different directions. And I'm like, where's everybody going? Oh, I have to go home teaching. My husband went home teaching. My other son went home teaching. And then they get home. Oh, our home teachers came. Oh, and now it's time to eat. And oh, I got to go do my recommend. And oh, and by the time it was 7 o'clock at night, and I'm thinking, well, Sunday's over. I'm like, and I was like, okay, this is what Satan wants us to feel. Like, there's no time for nothing. There's no time for anything.
But that Sunday was spent in the Lord's service.
Yes, it was.
So that's a good
Yeah.
Sunday, even though there's no
like we were just going
family
crazy.
time. It's
And
crazy
so-
time, but it's all in the Lord's service.
Yeah,
So
we were okay.
that was a
And-
good Sunday.
And so, anyways, I just was reminded really strongly. Like there was times I get home, it was time for bed, and I thought, hey, I got to read my scriptures, and I'd be like, I'm exhausted. I just want to go to bed. And so I started bringing them out. I brought them out into the kitchen on the big banister thing, and I set them there so that, like, when I have a few minutes when I'm stirring the hamburger or whatever, I can just like read some verses and ponder some things. So I did that a different way, and it's amazing how much I remember more throughout the day than just in one time frame. Like,
Yeah.
I'll just take a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes here, and read, and then ponder those for a while. Maybe when the kids are doing homework or something, I'll be shredding carrots or something and have my scriptures and read a few more verses and ponder some more. So I tried reading differently, just
Good.
a few things at a time and ponder different, and that was a lot more insight. And then one thing I've been struggling with my oldest son is he just is like always sad. He's 15 and just always sad and depressed. And I'm thinking, okay, this must be the 15-year-old thing where you're trying to find who you are and everything. And it dawned on me reading through 3rd Nephi that he doesn't know who he is. Like he knows he's the son of God, but that he doesn't really believe he's the son of God. Because if he believed it, he would be so happy, and that would be the joy of his life. And I thought, okay, as a mom, what do I need to do to have him realize that he is that special and that he's the son of God? But I got that from reading 3rd Nephi. And I don't think there's anything in there about that, but it just dawned on me when the Savior was appearing to the Nephites that these people really knew when he came down who he was, who they were. And I thought, oh my gosh, my son doesn't really believe who he really is, And so, yeah, it's just really good, just a different thing.
So have you figured out a way to teach him now?
No, I'm still waiting for that revelation.
When it comes, share it with us.
Yeah, okay.
That's great.
So on Sunday, I had typed up, because I don't always read my own handwriting well, I kind of typed up the different things that were in that conference talk.
Good job.
Well, I handed them to my husband and said, read them. Because he does not like reading. He needs it. So he thinks if I can summarize the talk for him.
You give him the cliff notes and he reads them.
Exactly. I was
Okay.
Like, you like to cheat. But so when we did our family council on Sunday, he literally said to my kids, family home evening is no longer a debatable thing, because we have one son that just refuses to come to family homie thing. He's like, you will show up, and if you're a grump, I guess he just gave consequences that, you know, if you're gonna ruin family homie thing, we're gonna give you not so fun chores to do later. And then he went through our calendar and he's like, okay, what day do we want to go to the temple every month? And I'm like, who are you and what did you do with my husband? He literally was like, okay, we need these blessings. So what do we have to do to, you know, get them? And I'm just like, seriously, where did this man come from? And so we have dates on our calendar now where he and I are going to go to the temple. Our 17-year-old has decided that he, because my husband is his stepdad, he's like, Mom, how do I do my own family history? I'm like, well, we'd have to, you know, get your member number and all that. And he's like, well, I want to be able to take names to the temple for my family and not just yours and dad's. And I'm like, okay. So he got started on that on Sunday. And he's like, so will you take me to the temple once a month at like 5 in the morning? And I looked at him going, oh.
That's when they come.
Okay.
That's when the youth
You
come.
know, that's when they come. And I'm like, I could probably do that. So, you know, he's excited. And if we could ever get my 15-year-old on board, that would be awesome. I don't think we will anytime soon. But we did the same thing with our twins and just gave them Book of Mormons. And my husband was having a cow and they're sitting and just coloring in them. And I'm
That's
like,
what we do.
They're going to be 8 next year. Let them destroy
Yes.
this set of scriptures.
Yes.
And then when we get their, you know, they get their new ones for their baptism next year, we'll teach them how to do it right. He's like, okay. So, I mean, literally, when we're doing scripture study, their whole pages are just red, purple, and blue.
Perfect.
They're having fun. They're
Perfect.
listening. They're paying attention.
Yeah.
But they love we finally did have to do the masking tape thing because we had their names inside, but because they're those blue ones, they would argue.
Right.
Guys, open to the inside. Whose name is on there? Oh, that's Mia's. So Drew would, you know, go running up going, well, where are mine?
Yeah.
So we just now have a bucket in our living room that has everybody's scriptures in them. And they can take them upstairs and read them, but they have to put them in that bucket so that we know
Find them.
where they are, so we're not looking for them at scripture time.
Fabulous.
So,
Oh, I'm so excited. Woo. Payday. Woo-hoo. This is
I
our
just love
payday.
it when I can get my husband on board with stuff. 'Cause he actually
Yes.
just called right as we started class, like, I just came home, where are you? And I'm like, hello, it's Tuesday. And he went, oh, never mind.
Good. Anyone else read it or ponder it or, because I'll call on you, you know me. Anybody else like to share? What did you come up with?
I do it.
Okay, and that's fine. Come on. We discussed this last week. I didn't forget. And no.
Okay, so our Sabbath days have always been a little bit interesting. My husband was raised very, very different than I was, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It just was raised very different than I was. Well, last year we had Sundays, we had church at 1, and this year we have it at 9, which I like much better, but that leaves a lot of day left to fill. And we have a 13-year-old and a 6-year-old at home to fill it with. And so I had been thinking a lot about the Sabbath day well before this lesson, well before church was getting, you know, in December. It's been going through my head for a really long time. And part of it is that Sunday's just busy and I'm tired and I just want to nap and it's, you know, downtime, and it's really not. It needs to be a day of worship. And so I needed to figure out some ways to have it happen that I could carry out on my own if I didn't have to support my husband at the time. And it doesn't mean that he doesn't support me, because he does, but a lot of times I have to start it. I have to get it going. So I'd been praying and reading my scriptures, and I finally went back through all of my ensigns and friends and stuff from the last year, and I tear all my things out that I'm going to keep, and then I put the rest in a bin where the kids can cut them up or whatever. So when I was going back through, I realized that in almost every single ensign, there was something last year about Sabbath day worship, every single month. And I thought, okay, this is being said over and over and over and over and over. I better, I need to look at it. So then I sat down and I reread back through them. And as I was reading back through, I pulled out a piece of paper and I started making a list. Like anything that popped into my head, I stopped reading and just wrote it down of things that we could possibly do. things that I wouldn't necessarily consider a Sabbath day activity, but I wrote them down anyway. And then I went to the internet and I did a whole bunch of research and I just read every list that I could possibly find. And I just wrote a list and wrote and didn't pay attention to any of it. I was just writing as fast as I could so that I had a list, because I thought that's exactly what my 6-year-old's going to say. She's going to say, well, what are we going to do? And I, on the spot, my brain's just not going to come up with it. So I went back through, did all of that. And my kids really enjoy family history, probably because I enjoy it. And so my kids really, really enjoy it. They've done indexing before. They have their own accounts online. I mean, we do that kind of stuff all the time. But that was a lot of what the stuff kept coming back to for us, was family history. And so we decided, okay, well, there's got to be something. And a couple of years ago in the Friend, every single month they had they were being detectives, family history detectives is what they were. And so they had something they could do every single month to be a detective, and they created a case file to prove who their family was, is what it was doing. I thought, okay, well, that's great, because if we're trying to teach them that that's what they're doing when they're sourcing people and showing their birth certificates and their marriage licenses and stuff, that this is what they're doing. They're creating all this proof to show that they're a real person and that what happened really happened. So I thought, okay, well, I can use that, because we could definitely do that. And then I realized in the Friend this year, they are doing a family history quest. So every single month, they have a new family history quest for you. So the very first thing that they had for them to do was to get a binder. And I thought, my kids are going to hate having another binder because we have a lot of them. And I thought, well, it's fine, I'll just get a binder. So we got a binder, and then there's like a badge card, and they will get a badge every single month when they fill them out. So we got a binder, and I thought, okay, well, the first Sunday we're just going to decorate them. So I'll pull out all my stickers, I'll pull out everything, and I'll just put it on the table and say, here you go for it. Well, I have an 18-year-old son who is a service missionary, so he's still at home, and he likes to do a lot of things on his own without being involved with family. So I was telling him, I bought him a binder, and I said, this is a family deal. And I bought one for my husband, and we all have them. And I said, we are all doing this. And so, and of course, he threw a fit about it, and I was like, seriously, we're going to really do this. My son threw a fit about it. And I said, yes, you're doing this. And you can't go to your fireside tonight until you do this. So you may as well sit down and do this. So he kind of half-heartedly did it. But my girls were so into it, decorated it, did the whole thing, and I was kind of watching them do it. And they're like, Mom, aren't you going to do it? And I was like, yeah, I'll do mine later. And like, no, like we are all doing this. I was like, okay, I get it. So I did mine too, and we got done doing that, and I gave them their badges, because they had to do that. They had to create, I think they had to create their family search account, I think was the other thing they had to do. So, which they already had them. Anyway, so we did that, got those done. I had to do divider sheets, all those kinds of fun things with them. And then I talked to my son later, another day, and they were so excited. They're like, what are we going to do next week? And so then I had to think of something to add to their binder for the next week. So that's kind of one of the things that we're doing on Sunday, is adding something to their family quest binder. So this last week we added, they had to go back, they had to log into their Google account online, the Google Maps, and they had to put in all of the addresses they lived at, and print out the map with their addresses. So that's what they had to do. And of course, with my daughter, she's only lived in our house. So she started hers, and then Brooke copied hers, and she lived in 2 houses. So she added hers too. Then my son had his, and he's lived in 3 houses. So, he had 3. And anyway, and then we went back and we were doing mine and my husband's. And they were more and fuller. And we did my son, who's on his mission in Santa Rosa, California, and we had to add his Provo MTC address. We had to add both of his places in California. And so he's going to have a huge list by the time he's done. So we were just doing some of those kinds of things. But I talked to my son, who's home, afterwards, after the kids all got to bed, and I knew that they were asleep. And I said, look, you guys had Sunday when you were little, and your 6-year-old sister, this is the memory she's going to have. Do you want her to have the memory of you not being involved in it and not being part of our Sabbath day and doing what we're doing as a family? And he looks at me and he goes, no, I need to be part of that. I said, you're right, you do. And he goes, but I don't want to do it. I said, then don't do it for you, do it for her. And he goes, oh, okay. I need to do it for her. Like, it's not for me, it's for her. So I thought, well, that was kind of an interesting reaction. And so that's kind of some of the things that we're doing. But I even put some things on the list that I would not necessarily have considered a Sabbath day activity, like going for a nature walk. It is, but I just would never have really considered it. We like to try new recipes and stuff on Sunday, and so trying a new recipe and taking it to somebody, things like that. And so I just made a huge list, and then I usually go through Saturday night and I write down 4 or 5 things that I'm willing to do, and those are the only ones that I tell my kids about the next day. I'm willing to do that day. So, and sometimes we get to all of them, and sometimes we don't get to all of them. But that's kind of been our plan, and so far this year, we have not watched TV on Sunday.
So tell them again where that quest is in the
It's-
friend.
it's
Which month is it in?
It's
Is it
in every single month. Yeah, there's a new one. So the February friend just came out, and this month I think the quest is that they're supposed to ask questions to family members, like ask them a story about something that happened. It could be something current, something far away, and then they're supposed to draw pictures to illustrate that story. But they're supposed to see how many stories they can fill in on their binder. So I'm going to have my kids call their grandpa and ask them and have him tell them a story, and I'll prep him ahead of time, but have them get a story from him, and then they can draw the pictures to go with that and put that in their binder. And part of the reason that that's going to be so helpful is that part of my son's mission is family history, and so he's been reading family stories that from life histories. And one of the things that I've done with my dad, because he doesn't write, and so one of the things I've done with my dad is he has cars. Like, everything he knows is by cars, and he has a new car every year kind of thing, and has had since he could drive. And so you ask him what his car is, and he can tell you, like, he can give you the whole list of his car, where he got it, how much he paid for it, all that kind of thing. And so I thought, well, if my dad can't do his family history, then that's what I'm going to use to do his family history. So I went through and I just asked him questions like, well, what was your car here, and what was your car here? And so then I started putting notes next to him, like, well, this is when my sister was born, and this is when I was born, and this is when he was in the Navy, and this is when he met Mom. And so then I would go back down and I would just talk to him, and I'd ask him about his car, and then pretty soon I was asking him other questions about, well, what about this and what about that? So we had all of these stories, and my son had just barely read all of these stories about his grandpa, and so now we're going to turn around and do this, and so he's going to get the opportunity to share some of those stories with his sisters.
Which
now.
keeps him involved, which
Yeah.
is really good.
Yeah, so we're going to pull him back in.
The thing
But they
about
have
this
new ones every
is
time.
all of this stuff's online. It requires 2 things. Going online and finding these fabulous ideas, if you choose, and it takes work. When he says, I think, Saturday night, decide what I'm willing to do tomorrow. Sunday is not a day of rest for mother. You can have Monday, but Sunday really makes Mom on her game. Yes.
Because we have the interesting perspective too, where we have teenagers and little ones. And so I have been searching for years to try and find family homemaking lessons that will hit both. And I actually found a website Sunday that's called A Year of FHE. And it literally gives you lessons for older people and little people. And so I tried one last night, and my little ones loved it because it was on President Nelson. And they had to put a puzzle that was like a heart shape
Mm-hmm.
together, and it took them forever. But my little girl is starting to be able to read pretty big words, and so she was able to read, and she'd go, oh, I remember that because I read them a story. And then my older kids, and my husband, and they can do it too, had to look up scriptures to fill in something from when President Nelson was made prophet.
Yeah.
And it was just, my kids were like, Mom, you need to do these more often because we all got something out of it.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes just finding something that works.
So tell them again where that site is.
It's a year of FHE.net.
Okay, a year of FHE.net.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it literally, it has 3 years worth of lesson plans, but I like them as I was looking at them because they're kind of like the young men and young women lessons and what we're doing in Relief Society. So for 1 month, they focus on, like, for January, it was families. So they're all on, like, our heavenly family, our extended family, our family, and our word family.
Yeah.
And then the next month, it's a different topic. And my kids are like, I'll get more out of that because my oldest really likes the way that the lessons are in Sunday school and increase for him because he's like, I learned something. We kind of continue
Yeah, it builds upon
on,
each other.
we build on something. And so I think my kids will get more out of that. And that's something that, I said to my husband, we have fallen off the bandwagon because we were so good when my older kids were little and just haven't been. And it was him that was like, okay, it's now on the calendar and our boys are not allowed to go anywhere on Mondays anymore.
Good for
And I'm going,
you.
yay, okay, husband finally got figured it out. Maybe we'll actually get someplace.
You will. You will. To kind of wrap up, what are the 5 simple things that matter most? Prayer, scriptures, temple, family home evening, and the Sabbath day. Those are the 5 things that are foundational in creating these strong families that we want. So to kind of sum up that is Elder Bednar's talk from this past conference. And you may not have seen it in there. The title of his talk is Exceeding Great and Precious Promises. And that's your homework for this week. Exceeding Great and Precious Promises. Elder Bednar from this past conference. But let me just share with you a couple of quotes from it. But I want you to think, you have to read it with certain things in mind. So I want you to think about these 5 things and then listen to what he says. He says, now he was talking about the Sabbath day as our sacred time, the whole day, not just the sacrament, but the whole day. The Sabbath day is our family's sacred time. And then he was talking about the temple as being the sacred space. The sacred time would be the Sabbath. The sacred space is the temple. And he talks about these 2 things. And he said, now listen to him. What we do in our homes with his sacred time and with what we learn in his sacred space is pivotal to becoming partakers of the divine nature. That word pivotal is very interesting. To me, it doesn't leave much leeway. It says this is the foundation. What we do with the sacred time, meaning what we do on the Sabbath day, and what we do with what we learn in the temple in our homes, how we transfer that knowledge that we get and inspiration in the temple to our homes and our everyday life is pivotal to our gaining the divine nature. Then he goes on to say, but ultimately, what we become is the result of our knowledge of and willingness to learn from the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. It is not merely the sum total of our daily pursuits over the course of a lifetime. So what he's saying is, if we don't take the sacred time and the sacred space and the promptings that we have had from the Holy Ghost and allow those to change us, that we become different because of the knowledge we've learned. If it's just a checklist, do home evening, do this, do that, that will not change us. But taking it in and allowing the knowledge to become behavior is what will change us. Meaning, how long have you known about family home evening and family scriptures and family prayer and family study and going to the temple and going to the church, and you've gone all your life? But has it changed you? Now, it begins to change you as you develop what we were talking about last week. As you look at the promises and you do it because you want to claim those promises. Then this is the last one, and I think this is very interesting. He's quoting the Doctrine and Covenants. This is found in Doctrine and Covenants, section 82, verses 9 and 10. So when you get discouraged, go back and read this. Doctrine and Covenants 82, verses 9 and 10. Now, think of what we talked about last week. We talked about these 5 things, and then we talked about the promises that were connected to them. This is what he said. This is quoting the Doctrine and Covenants. I, being the Savior, I give unto you directions how you may act before me, that it may turn to you for your salvation. I, the Lord, am bound when ye do what I say, but when ye do not what I say, ye have no promise. Ponder that scripture. He's saying, I'm giving you direction. I'm giving you these 5 things. I've told you to do these forever. And I'm giving you these for your salvation, that you can save yourself and your family. And when you do them, I am bound to give you those promises that have been listed. When you obey, then I am bound. I love that scripture. And the Lord never lies. So there you have it. He has promised that you may have those promises if you do what he said. So that's your first homework assignment, is to read Exceeding Great and Precious Promises from Elder Bednar from the last conference, which is October of 2017. Okay, that's the first thing. Today we're going to have fun. Today's going to be a fun class. I get a little intense sometimes. I know I get on my soapbox from week to week. But today we're going to talk about something that's just a shade lighter and a little more fun. However, with that being said, sometimes when I teach this class, you take it like the 5 simple things last week. You get a little too intense with this. So I want you to lighten up. I'm giving you permission to lighten up. I want you to, this is going to be knowledge that I hope will be useful to you. I want it to be useful to you, but this is not doctrine. This is simply a tool to use for your benefit. And what we're going to do is talk about personality and the color code and how people are different and how they, we're all different. We as parents get really frustrated when we have a child that doesn't respond the way we want them to. It's very frustrating. And oftentimes we look at ourselves and say, I'm just failing as a parent with this child. Look how good this child is. I'm such a good parent. I'm doing such a great job on that one. And look at this one. This one's awful. Won't be obedient, doesn't pay attention, is always bouncing off the furniture. I'm a terrible parent to this one. I'm horrible. And this one, I can't get them to do anything. They just sit around. They're just a blob. What do you do? What do you do with these kids? So you feel, and somehow you get the false, and this is Satan, saying that your value of a parent is reflective. In other words, if that child chooses to be really, really, really good, then you're a good parent. If this child chooses to be really, really, really bad, then you're a lousy parent. You haven't taught them. And we have to teach with real intent. We have to obey the commandments and do the 5 simple things. We have to do our part. But you're still going to have children that might be a Laman or a Lemuel. You can do everything right. The Lord lost 1/3 of his children. And he did everything right. We still have agency. But part of being a good parent is to understand how individual each of our children are. We cannot, if you had one child and you really got it down to parenting that child, did any of you do that? Did you have it down before the next one came? Did you figure it out? So that one you got. And then the next one comes, and they are nothing the same. This first child that just goes to sleep and comes up and burps and sleeps and goos and talks and is wonderful. And the second one is colicky and is horrid. From the moment they come out, they're horrid. And so you say, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with this child? Nothing's wrong with the child, and nothing's wrong with you. They're just different. They have different needs. They have different personalities. And our responsibility as a parent is to learn to love them and teach them and train them individually. Do you remember when the Savior came to the Nephites and he took the children one by one and blessed them? And he even took the adults, the parents. There was 2,500 of them. And he had them greet him one by one. Do you ever figure out how much time that would have taken? I did once, but I can't remember what it was. It was amazing. It was all day. And that's only if he spent seconds with each one of them. But he didn't just talk to them as the congregation, he had them come up and he greeted them one by one. And we have to teach and train our children one by one. So we say that, and yet sometimes there's just no understanding. Because if they're not like you happen to be, they don't have that same personality you have. For example, some of you are very, very serious-minded and very intent on doing what is right and have a very righteous heart. And so you have an expectation that when children come to scripture study, they should sit down and we should discuss the scriptures. And we should have prayer, and they should be reverent. And they should sit with real intent and ask serious questions. Because this is serious stuff. It's important. And it's important that they learn it. And they need to sit down and be quiet and learn it. And you may have a child, even a young child, that is that way. And comes and sits and listens to you and watches you, everything you do. And the next one, you can't even keep them in the room. I mean, they are bouncing. They are up and down and on the couch and over the couch and under the couch and all around. And you're going, sit down, sit down. And they can't. They can't. And so you're in righteous parenting, you start nagging them and yelling at them and, trying to discipline them and make them do it. And really, we need to understand their personalities and then direct our parenting to what they understand, to what they feel. Now, we're going to talk about, and I'm sure you've all heard about love language, and for you or your spouse and your children, and that's a very, very fun topic, not one we're talking about right now, but it's the same kind of an idea. And let me kind of share with you an experience that happened just this last Christmas that I thought was very interesting, because as we talk about this and we talk about these core personalities, what I don't want you to do is categorize people and put them in a box. This is for understanding, not for putting them in a pigeonhole and not letting them come out. The goal is to become the best of all the different kinds of personalities. And if somebody puts you in a box, then you can't develop, because that's what you are. You have to be that. Let me share with you a little humorous but pathetically humorous experience that I heard about this Christmas. There was a little boy. I think he was probably, I would say, the lady who was telling me the story, I think she said he's around 9, 10-ish. And he was sharing what he got for Christmas. And he really had received an abundance of gifts. And the comment to him was, whoa, you really got a lot of presents for Christmas. And his answer was, well, of course, gifts is my love language. It's really kind of humorous, but it's really kind of pathetic. But do you see, his mother had taught him his love language, and then trying to help him feel loved, had given him this abundance of gifts. But now, do you get this feeling of entitlement? Oh, that's my love language, so of course you should give it to me, so I will feel loved. Of course, I deserve it, because that's my love language. Well, that's where we have to be careful. That's where you're pigeonholing. That's an example of pigeonholing. So when we talk about these personalities, and one of them tends to have a temper, if they say, well, what do you expect? That's my personality. I have a temper. This isn't an excuse. It's a tool for you to help understand them and for them to understand themselves and know what things they need to work on and what their strengths are. Yes?
What do you think a good age is? Because I think it's fun to know about this, but like you said, come at it from not pigeonholing people. But
yeah.
But I have a child who I think it would help with a sibling, because we talk about.
Oh yes, yes,
so,
yes.
So it would help her to understand, like,
this is why he does some of these things,
Yeah.
because it's kind of how he's geared towards.
Right.
So what could we do? So what age do you think is,
Well,
just to kind of loosely
let me, okay, this loosely, what we're going to talk about is the color code. There's lots of different kinds of personality tests. We're just going to talk about this one. Taylor Hartman is the author of the book called The Color Code, and he's written them. He's written a color code basic one, and he's written a color code for teens, and he's written a color code for youth, and he's written one for marriage, and so lots of, I mean, you can make a business out of it, and I don't recommend that. And there's a lot of other tests. So one that I was just doing here a few weeks ago, I went down to San Diego to visit my daughter, and my son was there, and there was one that's called Myers-Briggs. If you've taken that, that one's fascinating. That one's but it takes a different approach, but it's very, very interesting in just understanding personality types. So I don't think that you should get hung up and say, ooh, this is the right one. Basically, I think they kind of all share the same kinds of things, but don't get hung up on one or another. But in this, 2-year-olds are going to act like 2-year-olds. You know, well, you may have a very kind 2-year-old, but most 2-year-olds act like 2-year-olds. And they're discovering some independence, they're discovering who they are. It's part of growing and discovering their bodies, and their bodies can do things, and they're curious. They get into a lot of trouble, 2-year-olds, but it's not intentional. And that's part of being 2. So when we talk about these things, that's not a core personality. The behavior of a 2-year-old is a 2-year-old. So you kind of have to wait, I think, until you really start. This has great value. I would say, 9, 10-ish, and then definitely do the youth one if you want them to take the test. And mostly because the youth one is written in more simplistic language, so they can understand what the words mean. The adult one is written in words that you might have to explain. And sometimes when you explain a word, you give away your opinion. So it's better if it can be in simplistic words that they might understand. I think all of these you can find online. I don't think you have to buy any books or get anything. I think they're all pretty much online. However, with that being said, let's preface it. We're actually going to take part of the test and then discuss it. So those of you who haven't done it, it'll be interesting. Those of you who have done it, it's still interesting because you better have changed. That's the goal, is to change as you learn. You have to consciously learn different behavior and work on it. So hopefully you will change. We're not going to take the whole test because I don't want to spend that much time, but we're going to take enough that you can kind of get a feeling for it. With that being said, before we take it though, I'm going to give you a little Tanner 1-in-1. And this is not scripturally. This is my take. So I like to preface that because I don't want anybody quoting it like it's scripture. This is my own personal feelings about this. And that is, I think that there are 3 things that are critical in understanding the personality of yourself or your children. And the first thing is what I would call core personality, and that's what we're going to talk about. I think we came to this earth with personality. I think Abraham was foreordained to be Abraham in pre-existence. The Savior, of course, Mary was chosen. A lot of these, I think all of the prophets were foreordained. And I think it's because of the personality and what they had and the attributes they had in the pre-existence. I think they had something there. They didn't come to earth and learned everything here. If you doubt that, look at your children. They're coming with something different. Some of them are coming very sweet. Some of them are coming very active. You can feel it even when you're pregnant. Some of them lay so quiet. They're so wonderful. And other ones never stop moving. And when they get here, they still never stop moving. So they come. I think we developed a personality. We know we were gender specific. In the pre-existence, we were hims and hers. And I think that we developed personality there. And there's that core personality that I think we come to earth with. The second thing is gender. We know that that was in the pre-existence from the Proclamation on the Family. We know that there were hims and hers up there. And I think with being male and female, we look at life differently, and it's because of our gender. And it's not bad or good. Heavenly Father said it takes two to come together to be one, and that one becomes a God. It's because, not because they're alike, and it's a mirrored reflection. It's because she brings certain things, and he brings certain things, and together we need all of it in refinement and seeking perfection, which won't happen here. But we need the differences of the two genders to create Godhood. So another day, another time, we'll talk about what those differences are. And because of gender, we've been given different spiritual gifts as we come to earth. So men have been given different spiritual gifts so that they can do what they've been asked to do, the 3 Ps, preside, protect, provide. And women have been given a different set of gifts so that they can nurture. And they're not the same because our assignments, our roles are different. So Heavenly Father endowed each of us with different things just because we have different roles. There again, have you noticed little boys? You do not have to teach a little boy what a ball or a truck is or how to make noises. They can make the noise of a car or a gun. They come knowing how to do that. And little girls can't do that very well. But they come knowing how to play dolls. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there are some boys who play dolls and there's girls who play with balls. And that's what I mean. It's not that, absolute. But generically speaking, you can just feel, you feel those differences as you watch them come into the world and watch them grow up. And they, by nature, are different. The third thing that I think really develops personality is environment. And environment is birth order. Be the first, the second, the third. I think that makes a big difference. It's your economic. What kind of an economical situation were you born into? Were you born into money? Were you born into poverty? Were you born into middle class, hardworking? Were you born on a farm? Were you born in the city? This environment, I think, really makes a difference. Were you taught the gospel at a young age? Was that part of your environment when you grew up? All of these things, I think, make a huge difference in developing your personality and who you are. But as you take those 3 things and put them together, then I think that kind of helps develop naturally who we are. And then we need to take ownership of who we are and develop those things that may be lacking in our environment, or maybe lacking that we haven't been taught, or part of our core personality, it may be a weakness and we want it to be a strength. And so we have to focus on developing attributes in our personality that we want. Likewise, we need to focus on helping our children develop positive personal attributes. So, and as we do that, there are some, as we go through this, there are some core personalities that are very prone to anxiety and discouragement. So obviously, those personality types, you need to focus on teaching to be brave, to learn how to conquer those things before they leave your home. There's other core personalities that really don't care about other people. They care about getting things done. And I will walk right over the top of you because I really don't care what you think, but I'm going to get this done. Well, those you might have to temper a little bit and help them to understand that people are important. There's other personalities that are absolutely fearful of trying anything for fear they'll fail. And those you have to help them learn that, hey, failure is just one thing that didn't work. There's a whole bunch of things that you can try. So as you come to learn this, as much as anything, I want you to understand what areas you need to help individual children grow in. But I also want you to come to see a little bit better is because of who you are, what your personality is, how you tend to affect, to lift, to frighten, to corral, to box in your children. And we tend to do that under the guise of I'm the parent and therefore I'm right. And so we need to also look at ourselves and see what we are. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to take just a mini part of this personality test. How many of you have never taken it? Oh, good. Okay. And like I said, you can find this online. It's called the Color Code Test, and it's Hartman Taylor. No, Taylor Hartman. Hartman's the last name. Taylor Hartman. Why does he have two first names? Anyway. What we're going to do is I am going to read to you 4 words, A, B, C, and D. Your responsibility is to write down A, B, C, or D, the word that describes you the most. Do not overthink this. The more you think about it, the more wrong you'll be. So it never fails that somebody halfway through the test will say, well, I don't know what you're talking about because, you know, at church I'm this way, but at home I'm this way. And so I want to know, this is your home. Your test at home. I think you are more truly yourself at home when you're not putting on a show. See, I don't put on a show at church. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We all do. And that's okay. So it's your first feeling is probably the most correct. Now, with that being said, let me also say, this is an honesty test. Have any of you been to BYU? This is the honor code. No lying, no cheating. And the reason I say that all of these 4 words may not be positive. And so if I give a word that's not positive, you're immediately thinking, I'm not that. I don't want to be that. You know, I'm not obnoxious. I'm not, you know, critical. I'm not, you might be. So I just want you to be really honest. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to see your test. It's hard to admit our own flaws, particularly one personality has a hard time being criticized. So you have you'll probably lie on all of the negatives. But, you know, just try to be really honest and think about you at home, how you are with your kids and your husband, and we'll go from there. So think about your parenting. Think about how you interact when there's differences of opinions between you and your spouse. Just in regular life, I'm not talking about the discussions. I just mean regular life opinions. Okay, here we go. Oh, this is fun. Remember, just write down A, B, C, or D, because there'll be 4 options. Number 1, and I am going to give you numbers, but we're not going straight through the test because I don't want to go through the test. But I'm giving you a number because sometimes you're going to say, when we're done, not when we're there, when we're done, if you go back and say, what were those 4? Give me the number, then I'll know which one we're referring to. Does that make sense? So I am not going straight. Don't say, oh, but you skipped 3, you skipped this, you skipped. I know I am. I know. Yep, I am. Okay, so number 1, A, opinionated, B, nurturing, C, inventive, D, outgoing. A, opinionated, B, nurturing, D, inventive. That was C, D, outgoing. Okay, quickly write it down. Number 2, A, see, some of you are already stumped. We've only done 1. Number 2, A, power-oriented. Now, this just means you like to be in control. You like to be the boss. You like to be the one who's making the plan and making it happen. You also like your own way with the kids. B, a perfectionist. C, indecisive. D, self-control. You have self-control. A, power-oriented, B, a perfectionist, C, indecisive, D, self-controlled. 8, A, bossy, B, self-controlled, C, a teaser, D, naive. A, bossy, B, self-controlled, C, a teaser, D, naive. Number 11. A, determined, B, detail conscious, C, a good listener, D, a party person. A, determined, B, detail conscious, C, a good listener, D, a party person. Number 13. A, responsible, B, idealistic, C, considerate, D, happy. A, responsible, B, idealistic, C, considerate, D, happy. 14, this is a fun one. A, impatient, B, moody, C, passive, D, impulsive. A, impatient, B, moody, C, passive, D, impulsive. 16. I just love this because some of you will never admit who you really are, but you are who you are. 16. A, argumentative, B, unforgiving, C, directionless, D, an interrupter. A, argumentative, B, unforgiving, C, directionless, and D, an interrupter. 19. A, powerful, B, deliberate, C, gentle, D, optimistic. A, powerful, B, deliberate, C, gentle, D, optimistic. Number 20. A, insensitive, B, judgmental, C, boring, D, undisciplined. A, insensitive, B, judgmental, C, boring, D, undisciplined. 27. A, direct, speak your mind. B, creative, C, adaptable, and D, a performer. A, direct, B, creative, C, adaptable, D, a performer. Number 28. A, calculating, B, self-righteous. None of you are going to want to put that down. C, self-deprecating. You speak badly, you put yourself down. You're always, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't, I don't know how to do that. Oh. And D, disorganized. A, calculating, B, self-righteous, C, self-deprecating, and D, disorganized. And 29. A, confident, B, disciplined, C, pleasant, D, charismatic. Okay, 33. Oh, yeah. Confident, disciplined, C is pleasant, and D is charismatic. Okay, 33. For me, for you, life is most meaningful when it, A, is task-oriented and productive. We are getting the list checked off. B, is filled with people and purpose. C, is free from pressure and stress. And D, allows me to be playful, lighthearted, and optimistic. A, task-oriented and productive. B, filled with people and purpose. C, is free of pressure and stress. And D, allows me to be playful, lighthearted, and optimistic. So if you see C, and we'll talk about it later, but if the purpose of life for you is to be free of pressure and stress, do you see what happens when they're on a mission and life is full of stress and pressure? That's why you have to teach that personality how to deal with that kind of situation. 36. Oh, I wish we could go around the room and I could hear these. As a parent, I am A, demanding, quick-tempered, and uncompromising. My way or the highway. A, demanding, quick-tempered, and uncompromising. B, I am concerned, sensitive, and critical. C, I am permissive, easily persuaded, but often feel overwhelmed with parenting. I am permissive, easily persuaded, and feel overwhelmed. D, I am playful, casual, and tend to be a little obnoxious. Playful, casual, and obnoxious. Anybody need those again? Okay. A, demanding, quick-tempered, and uncompromising. B, concerned, sensitive, and critical. C, permissive, easily persuaded, and overwhelmed. D, playful, casual, and obnoxious.
That must be the one where you just.
I'm just glad he owned that one.
37. In an argument with a friend. Okay, this means argument says there's emotion in it. You're invested in this. You're really arguing. You have differences of opinion and they're strong. So that's an argument, okay? But it's with a friend. So in an argument with a friend, or I'd say with a sibling, somebody out of your home, okay? In an argument with a friend, I am most likely to be A, verbally stubborn about the facts. B, concerned, sensitive, and critical about their decision, about what they want to do. Critical. C, silently stubborn, uncomfortable, and a little confused why we have to have this conversation. D, loud, uncomfortable, and compromising. Give in a little bit. Okay. A, verbally stubborn about the facts. B, concerned, sensitive, and critical. C, silently stubborn, uncomfortable, and a bit confused about what we're doing here. And D, loud, uncomfortable, but compromising. Okay, that's 37. 40. When I fail. Now, this doesn't mean you just didn't read your scriptures this morning. This is, I would say, a public failure. Say you gave a talk in church that really bombed. We had a lady in church this Sunday who, she was giving a phenomenal talk, but she had a 3-year-old that kept running up on the stand, that dad couldn't quite catch. And then even though you have a fabulous talk, you feel like it's a failure. Or you give a Relief Society lesson and it just bombs. So when you feel, now this is how you feel like a failure. It doesn't mean it really is. You feel like it's a failure and it's a public failure. Then, A, I am silently self-critical, yet verbally stubborn and defensive. B, I feel guilty, self-critical, and vulnerable to depression, and I dwell on it. I replay it all week. It goes over and over and over, and I shoulda, woulda, coulda, or why didn't somebody, da-da-da-da. A C, I feel unsettled and fearful, but I keep it to myself. D, I am embarrassed, nervous, and seek to escape the situation. I am just going to get out of here. So A, silently self-critical, yet verbally stubborn and defensive. B, guilty, self-critical, and vulnerable to depression, and I dwell on it. C, unsettled and fearful, but I keep it to myself. D, I'm embarrassed and nervous and seek to escape. Okay, number 44. In a relationship, now we're talking marriage. A, I mostly want to be approved of and right. B, I want to be understood, appreciated, and intimate. C, I want to feel respected. I want there to be tolerance and peace in the marriage relationship. And D, I want to be praised. I want to have fun. And I want to feel free, like your spouse isn't always saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Feel free to be who I am. Feel free that I'm loved for who I am. So A, be approved of and right. B, be understood, appreciated, and intimate. C, be respected, have tolerance for each other, and have a peaceful relationship, atmosphere in the home. D, be praised, have fun, and feel free. Okay, now what I want you to do is add up your A's, B's, C's, and D's and record them at the bottom.
Can you repeat question 11?
Yes, I can. See, that's why I wanted you to.
Yeah.
Okay, A is determined. B is detail conscious. C, a good listener. And D, a party person. You're overthinking this.
I am.
Determined, detail conscious, a good listener, a party person.
Okay, 27.
Okay, I'll do 27. Which one do you want? Okay, let's do 27. 27 is A, direct, B, creative, C, adaptable, and D, a performer. Number 6?
Yeah.
We didn't do 6. 1, 2, 8.
After 5.
We didn't do 5. Okay, number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, here you go. 14. A, impatient. B, moody. C, passive. D, impulsive. Okay, what was the other one you wanted? Okay, yep, it would be 16. Okay, A, argumentative. B, unforgiving. C, directionless. And D, an interrupter. Okay,
19.
powerful, deliberate, gentle, optimistic. Okay, which one did you want?
I think it was 33.
33? Okay, 33 is, for me, life is most meaningful when it is A, task-oriented and productive, B, filled with people and purpose, C, is free of pressure and stress, and D, allows me to be playful, lighthearted, and optimistic. Okay, got your totals? Ready? Got your totals? Day of confession. How many had the highest number of A's?
I know.
How many had the most B's? That would be most of you. Okay, C's? D's. D's are usually the least. B's are usually the most. And we just kind of vary in between the A's and the D's. Okay, let's just discuss a little bit about what these personalities are. A's are what we are going to call reds. B's are what we're going to call blues. C's are what we are going to call whites. And D's are what we are going to call yellows. And it makes no difference what it is. It just is that we are going to talk about how they view life differently. Now, I want you to understand right now, there is no right and there is no wrong. There is no right and there is no wrong. They're just different. And the interesting part of that is that this is why you cannot parent all of your children the same way. Because they're different on the inside and they react. You'll have a real fun time when you reach more my age and your kids come home and they do remember whens. And one child sees this experience as just so much fun, and someone else sees the child as just, it was awful, it was terrible, how could you make us do this? And it's the same experience, but they view it differently because of what they're bringing to the experience because of those three things: their core nature, their gender, and their environment. So we just really do need to understand this as we go along. So let's just kind of look at these things. I think you have this in your thing. So let's start with this, and let's start with red. So I don't know which one's first in your book, but we'll go with red. Reds are the A's. Reds are, their motivation in life is power, meaning they like to be in control. They have a hard time being on a team. They want to be the leader of the team. There's nothing wrong with that. This world would be at a standstill if we didn't have a few reds that make things go. But reds are the task-oriented. They have their list, and their purpose in life is to get that list done. And if they walk over people to get it done, that's too bad. It's important to get the list done. They tend to be very bossy. They know what they want, and they know how to get it done, and they're going to be quite bossy. The reds have a very high ego, but with saying that, reds hate to be criticized. They don't like it to be made public that they have any cracks. They want to be right. And so a crack means that there's a wrong, and they don't want to be wrong. They want to be right. So you have to be kind of careful how you discipline a red, because if you get very strong discipline on a red, they will fight. These are great fighters. They are born with the gift of argument. They can argue with you, and as you become engaged in power struggles with a red, in the beginning when they're little, you can win, but as they get older, you will lose. You will lose every time. And so it's important to learn how to talk to deal with, and to validate the qualities of a red child while you're teaching them to love people. Reds don't naturally come to this earth loving people. They don't come. They have to develop that gift of charity. Let me tell you something else about a red child. And I'm not saying it's about you reds here, because I think it's something you have to learn. It's something you learn. I think you've learned it, but you have to help your children learn it. And that is, red children have, probably of all of the types, the hardest time developing faith. because their world is, I have power. I am in control. If you would ask a red personality to be a patriarch, it would be excruciatingly painful. Be a real test of faith, because as a patriarch, you totally give up your thinking and wait for the inspiration of the Lord for these blessings. So, do you see what I'm saying? You have to give up your power, and reds are all about their power. Now, there can be fabulous in leadership callings in the church, but they're fabulous because they're qualified. I mean, because they could do it, because they have the natural gifts. And so when they're put in a situation that they can't control, an illness or something like that, it really does, it's hard for a red. It is hard. And so you have to help teach them and help them learn through those experiences. Those are hard. Reds are very, 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 did I say very? I really meant very competitive. They want to be the winner. They want to win the game. I won't say at all costs, but almost. They're just very competitive because they want to be the best. That's that power. They want to be the best. Now, the other thing about a red is they want direct answers. If you are a red parent, actually that's part of your gift, is that you can just give direct answers. You don't have to be engaged. However, a red is quick to argue. If you're a parent and you have a red child, you'll both argue because you're both going to be right. And your right is right. And that's it. And so you'll argue until... Reds are very, very strong personalities. So when you have a red child, you've got a strong-willed child. We say strong-willed, they are strong-willed. And then you have a strong-willed child with a strong-willed parent, and you can have some fireworks go off there in the home. You can have some adventures that are really amazingly exciting, because reds do have very strong personalities. Now, if you have a red marrying a red, you can also have dynamite. I mean, it can be very strong where both partners they know that they're right. And when their right is not your right, you can have some real conflicts. All of these you can learn to live through, but you need to just understand them. Reds do like to argue. The weaknesses of red is they are very egotistical. They come to this life with a very strong self-esteem. They know they're good. And they are. I mean, they really are. So sometimes it's hard to teach them humility because they really are good. They never slow down. They move fast. They're on the go. They're task-oriented, and they're high-energy people. They can make changes without planning because they know in their mind that this different course is better and it's right, and therefore they'll change the course. And that's good for them. They do fear losing, and they fear that people might take advantage of them, and they don't have time to listen. They are very impatient listeners. They don't have time. They want to get on with the thing. Now, with that being said, then, you can understand we tend to lecture too much to red children. They don't want to listen to all our reasons why we should do something. They just want you to know what they have to do and just give me the bottom line, and I may or may not do it, but just bottom line it. Don't give me the lecture that goes with it. So, on the bottom, it says, in developing the relationship with a red. Now, if it's a red child, or even with you, if you're a red adult, present things logically. They're logical thinkers. They're not emotional thinkers. They're logical thinkers. Demand their attention and respect. Don't let them get sassy with you. Just demand their attention and respect. Be direct and brief and specific.
I just had to tell him he cannot demand, right?
I said don't get sassy with me.
Be direct and brief. Don't give them the lecture series. They're not interested. Be productive and efficient. Offer them leadership opportunities with a red child to allow them to pick their own jobs or to put them in charge of a family home evening. To give them leadership responsibilities makes them flourish. They love it. They love it. Be prepared when you go to talk with them about anything that they might disagree, that you have your facts and figures. They're facts and figures people. So they want to know why. And it better be, and you better know why other than just moralizing to me. You know, give me the facts and the figures. And it's very important with a red child that you respect their right to use their agency. And so one of the best ways to parent a red child is through choices. Allow them, rather than just demand something, allow them the right to make choices. Now be sure that all of your choices are acceptable to you, but let them make choices. Do not embarrass them in front of others. They will come back to you with a vengeance. So be very careful that if you disagree with something they're doing, you correct them in private. You don't correct them in public. Don't argue from an emotional perspective. They don't get it. They can't get that. Don't use an authoritarian approach. I'm the mother, therefore you do it. Because they will argue that. They will jump right on their bandwagon and argue it. Don't use physical punishment. Don't be slow or indecisive. They want things now. Move it, you know. But it's wonderful when you have a red, and we'll talk about this when we do discipline, to allow them to think about something till tomorrow. They want it resolved right now. Do it now. You know, they would rather be grounded for 2 weeks and do it now than make me think about it for a day. So it's great to let them think about it. From a red, they have a hard time with personal and intimate relationships. They just, personal relationships with reds are a little bit tricky. And so to be married to a red or to have a red child and expect them to just be loving and cuddling and warm and fuzzy, they're not. They're not. And don't feel like that doesn't mean they don't love you. Don't take their arguments and their attacks personally. They're venting. The one thing about a red is they tend to blow up really. They blow up really good. But then it's over. They don't carry it. They blow up and they let it go and it's done. All personalities are not like that. But reds tend to blow hard and then let it go. So they don't backpack a lot of stuff, which is good. Okay, reds are powerful personalities. The other powerful personality is your blue. So go to the blue. Your blue personality is just about equally powerful with your red, which can create some problems. A blue wants to, they're an emotional personality, and they yearn for intimacy, meaning they want to feel loved, they want to give love, they want to feel love, they want to be loved, they want to be approved of, and this closeness is what they desire in relationships. But they have a very strong personality. Reds are right because they're right. Ask them. They'll tell you they're right. And their right is right. A blue is equally strong in their feelings of right and will argue it and defend it. But their right is right because it's morally right. So your blues are the defenders of the faith, if you will. They're the ones who feel very strongly tied to rules and laws and regulations, and we follow those, and they're important, and everybody should follow those. And they're very tied to doing what is right. They come wanting to do what is right. They're very loyal. They are family-oriented. They want to be part of the family. They're very protective of the family. They feel very frustrated and frightened, if you will, when the family seems to fall apart to them. That's their security, is the family. They are very well organized. Your blues tend to be clean and neat and keep their rooms nice. They like stability, and they are not good if you change something. They're not spontaneous at all. They are not spontaneous. I'm a blue. And when my husband just calls me in the afternoon and says, oh, let's go visit so-and-so tonight for home teaching, something in me does not settle well. And is there anything wrong? Do I have anything else on? No. There's nothing wrong with going. But I want to know at least the day before. I got to process it. Blues have to process it. Don't throw something at a blue, or if they get a little bit frustrated, and they could get when they're an adult, they just get testy. So it get crotchety. So they want to know what's happening and be aware. Now, the weakness of blues, and this says it very kindly, it's not, we are much worse than that. It says they get stuck, we stagnate because we don't like change. We tend to be extremely boring. We just get in this safe little rut, and we just want to stay there. Don't kick us out of our little rut because it's safe. So we tend to be very boring. Blues are emotional basket cases. They're the one says moody, depressed. Those are blues. We take on the martyr. Well, if nobody else will do the dishes, I guess I have to again. Nobody else is going to feed the dog, I guess I have to feed the dog. Nobody else is going to clean the house, I guess I have to. We can carry this stuff around, and it really impacts everybody we live with. We tend to feel guilty because we're perfectionists, and when we can't meet up to our own standards of ourselves, then we feel guilty. But we also are very critical of our children because we have a high expectation for them and are very critical of them when they don't meet up to the standard that we have. We tend to not like to take risks. So if you have a blue and you say, okay, we're going to have a family party and we're going to go bumper car racing and we're going to go as fast as we can go, your blue will say, yeah, I don't think I want to do that one. So they tend to push back on anything that is unknown, scary, or risky. They like it safe and boring because they like to look at a situation and feel like they can succeed. And if they can't succeed, because they're perfectionists, they tend to not want to try. So your blue children, you have to teach them it's okay to fail. Teach them that failure's safe. Teach them that failure's okay and that they're still a good person. They tend to be very prone to guilt, and you have to teach them to get over that also. If you look down at the bottom, what a blue wants is to be appreciated. And if you look at the words, what were the words on the test? Okay, these are blue words. Nurturing, perfectionist, sympathetic, suspicious, loyal, worry-prone, reliable, analytical, oversensitive, detail-conscious. See, that's your blue. Just very straight and very boring and not very creative. We're great copiers. So that's me. That's me. So this kind of person, you need to, you see the do's and the don'ts. You need to help them feel secure in your relationship. If you really want to teach a blue correct principles of the gospel of Jesus Christ, be sure your relationship with them is strong. Because anytime you correct them, and we have to be corrected when we're learning how to do things right, they're very insecure to correction and criticism. So you have to be careful how you say it. Do you correct them? Yes, you do. But be sure that your level of that relationship is good. Appreciate them. They will behave and be well-mannered. They're probably your easiest child to raise because they believe in rules and they live rules. They want to be good. And so they tend to be a little bit self-disciplined. But don't interpret that to think that inside they feel wonderful and secure. They're self-disciplined because, number one, they don't want you to criticize them, but they need to be appreciated for it. Don't take it for granted. Appreciate them and Let them know how much that means to you. With a blue, allow them time to change directions. Give them enough time to redirect and to rethink different situations. Don't make them feel guilty. If you are a blue parent, and there are a lot of you in here, you talk too much. So when your kids do something wrong, you want to moralize with them and preach to them, because you're very sure if they understand the rightness of what you're asking them to do, that they'll just jump up and down and be willing to do it. And so if they disagree, we tend to preach more. It must be because they just don't understand why this is so right. And so we keep going and going and going. And bottom line is we just talk way too much in the moment. We need to learn to not talk. So just as a parent, a blue parent. Okay, the two softer personalities are the whites and the yellows. Your white personality, you have to be very careful of, because it's easy to break a white's spirit. And once it's broken, it's very difficult to build it back up. Whites, they will follow all the rules because they don't want any attention drawn to themselves. They don't want to be the center of attention. They're soft. They like peace. They want low stress. They want life to be peaceful. They can't stand conflict. They can't stand arguing. Any of your bumper stickers that say kindness begins with me, those are whites. They can't understand why everybody can't just be kind and good and not fight and not argue. Your white will tend to ask a lot of questions. And they ask questions because they don't want to make a mistake, because they can't stand the attention that comes if they make a mistake. So they'll stay out of the spotlight by asking lots of questions, so they're sure to get it right. They really want to get it right. They're perfectionists. They want to do everything perfectly. And if they can't, your white tends to quit. So if you put too much pressure on a white who's not up to standard, then they tend to quit. They don't want to do it. They feel defeated. They can't stand things too intense. They can't stand lots of noise and lots of confusion. If you go to a party and you see some one or two kind of sitting on the back watching, that's your white. And it doesn't mean they're not having fun. They can be having a lot of fun watching how crazy everybody else is, but they don't want to be out there doing it. So they tend to hold back. They have soft, gentle personalities. It's a simple personality. So when you talk with them, don't raise your voice. Don't give lectures. Don't be loud. Be kind. Be very kind and very firm with a white child. You don't give in, but you don't yell and scream and jump up and down and ground them for the rest of their lives. Go ahead and do that to a red, because they don't even care. It bounces right off of them. But to a white, it could be a very, very traumatic. Use soft, even when you're correcting them, use soft words. Be really kind. Your whites tend to be daydreamers, and don't take away their daydreams. Let them have their dreams. Talk to them about them. Let them have some fantasies. Be more casual and relaxed when you work with white children. Any of you whites as adults? Is that right?
I'm white and red. Pretty.
Boy, that is a rare combination. You tend to go to your red in certain circumstances.
Certainly, yeah. But I'm overriding white, but I do have a lot of.
Yeah. But that's probably more situational. Probably you see yourself as really red in certain environments, and then sometimes you can have a red personality, but in strong conflict, you may tend to go to a different personality, a different color. Taylor Hartman says that you're one color. That's who you are. I don't agree with that. I think that we are multiple colors, and I think in different situations we tend to go different. But I think it's important to understand your basic core and understand the basic cores of your children so that you can work with them. Yellows, they can be the best and the worst of personalities. They are absolutely fun. They are fun people. They keep life happy. They're people oriented. They're open. They'll share their feelings, but they're like a butterfly in life. So if you have a child that just flits around and you can't seem to get their attention, you can't seem to direct them because they're so happy. They're just so happy. They're just having so much fun. They start lots of things, but they don't finish very many things because they can't stay focused. But if you're going to have a party, it's going to be a bomb if you invite all reds and whites. Get some yellows in there, and then you're going to have a party. Then it'll be fun, and they're exciting. They want to be liked. They look at life through rose-colored glasses. They're Pollyannas, which sometimes is really hard because you want to have a serious conversation with them. But they can't come down and focus. You want to say, okay, now this spelling test is serious. We need to get going on this spelling test. They can't bring it down. With yellows, if you have a yellow child, make their jobs fun. Tell them stories. Tell them you're the queen and they're the servant. And we're going to play queen today. And they get to, make it fun. Create stories and you win their cooperation. If they feel like it's fun, then you'll win their cooperation. Your yellows of all of the personalities are the most physical. They're your children who like to cuddle and be close and squeeze and hug. But you have to be careful with those yellows as they then go out in their teen years that you've taught them correctly about morality, because they tend to they're popular and their goal is to be popular. Now, if you wonder, watch at church. Just watch. Just watch in a group of people. You'll be sitting there quietly and somebody will come in and talks loud and acts loud, just like the whole room is suddenly filled with that person. That's your yellow. They are loud, they talk loud, they have loud voices, they tend to be this little obnoxious. That word was for them because they're always demanding by their storytelling and their loud voices and how they interact to be the center of attention. And they don't even sometimes know that that's what they're doing. So if you have yellow children, you have to help them understand that other children sometimes get center stage. Even the whites whom you have to push to center stage, your yellows will very willingly take it. They love it. And they're the ones you have to teach to sit down quietly when the home teacher comes. Don't crawl all over him and be in his lap and hugging him. And, we have to teach them. Your yellows are also very peer-oriented. So you have to watch your yellows as they get older. They're very anxious to be popular. So they're very concerned about peers and peer relationships. And so you have to keep home fun and your relationship with them fun so that they're not being pulled away and drift away from what you would want them to be. They're tender. They're tender. They're positive. They need you to adore them and to touch them and to build them up. I like on the weaknesses of yellows where it says, don't give them too much rope or they may hang themselves. They may. They're messy. They have messy rooms. They have messy notebooks. They have messy lockers. They just are kind of this disorganized, happy, wonderful, pleasant, exciting personality. And you have to teach them more structure in their lives. Now, do you see what it looks like to be a yellow parent? A true yellow parent who doesn't realize, wants to only have fun. Let's go play first and do our jobs later. Let's just go to the park. Let's just go to the beach. Let's just go on a hike. And every holiday is major fun. Party. I want to go to their house for the holidays because it is fun. But do you see how their house could be really messy and they may not have a lot of order in teaching children jobs? And yet, look at a true blue parent who has no yellow, which is where I started out. I had to learn yellow. I married a yellow, so we had some interesting experiences in the beginning. But I was no fun. I mean, it was like living at boot camp. I wanted everything right and correct and, and it was just no fun. So I had to learn yellow. And that's the goal, is that you take what you have and magnify it. Give it as a gift. It's fabulous. It's wonderful. And then learn the strengths of the other colors. So in the end, you become a rainbow. You want to be this rainbow. You want to have the best parts of all of the colors. It was freeing for me to learn long ago when I first started this, that my core is blue and the blues are very critical. I thought there was something spiritually wrong with me, that I tended to find the flaws, to referee all of my kids and always be looking at the flaws and looking at what was wrong with them. And then I came to realize, I just it's something I definitely need to work on and have worked on over the years. And I'm so much better at it than I used to be. As a matter of fact, I'm not that way hardly at all anymore. But when I could just look at it as not as a spiritual mess that I was in, but just something that I needed to work on, then it was freeing, and it made me feel free to ask the Lord to help me with it, and that I could work on it, and that I could overcome it. And you can. I'm a lot more fun now than I was. My grandkids think I'm a lot of fun. So I'm a lot more fun than I used to be. I grew up in a house of a red and a blue, and there was no fun. There was no fun in my growing up. So I wasn't taught fun, and I didn't learn fun. And so I grew up in a house where I didn't know that. And so Mike brought yellow into our home, and my kids grew up fun. With or without me, they were going to have fun, and their dad was going to see to it. So we would gather together to have family prayer, and I'm blue. Okay, kneel down, fold your arms, be quiet. And he gets, I had these 5 boys. I had the girls too, but these 5 boys would get there and kneel down with their dad. And all of a sudden, there's this big wrestling match going on. And he's taking them all down and pinning them, and they're all laughing and piling on top of it. And I'm going, it's family prayer time, put your arms. So it's no fun. I just was, and I learned to say, okay, have your takedown, and then we'll have family prayer. It's okay. We just get so tight about who we are. And he had to learn that there was a time where we do need to have family prayer. And I had to learn there's a time where you just have fun together. And so we learn from each other, and we grow from each other. But in this give and take that we have, figure out who you are and what strengths you bring to your home. And then figure out each of your children, help them magnify their strengths as you teach them to overcome their weaknesses. By nature, your red child will be a great missionary. I mean, they'll go out there and do the work, but they may be a miserable companion to whoever's missionary companion they are. So, you see, there's things, your white child may have so much fear and anxiety about going out. But if they get out, they're a fabulous companion because they listen. They're such good listeners, and they're fabulous missionaries because they listen to investigators, and they hear their stories, and they hear what they're dealing with, and they're very compassionate. But you have to teach them how to handle the stress and failure and discouragement, and help them to understand they're not failing. It's just part of life, and give them some tools to work with those things. It is wonderful that we're all different. There's no one that's better than the other. It's like looking at a big bouquet of flowers, and they're all different, but they all have their own beauty. So work to develop a bouquet in your home. Now, here's your homework. I want you to read that conference talk by Elder Bednar. I want you to read it from the point of the 5 simple things, focusing on in your head. Read it with that in mind. And then I want you to, number 1, look at yourself. I want you to read. This is the 1 week I really want you to read the handouts in your syllabus. So read the handouts. Then I want you to see if you agree with what your test said. See if that's who you really think is your core personality. See if you agree with that. You don't have to, but see if you do. And I want you to look at your children and your spouse, and this week only, you have permission to pigeonhole them. And I want you to see what you think they are. And then take one of them, either the spouse or one of your children, take one of them and look up their color then in the handout and see what it says is the best way to deal with them. Look at the way you've been dealing with them. Focus on trying to change your approach to them and see if it makes a difference. Now, it'll only make a difference if you were correct in assuming what they are. And so see if you can figure out what they are. And then I want you to take one of your children or your spouse, and make it your trial for the week. And see if you feel like there's any difference in the relationship by the end of the week. And then let's come back and share. And it may be that you'll say, I was wrong. I'm not what that test said I was. I think I'm this. And that's okay. That's okay. It's just to create this understanding of who you are and who they are. But I want you to test, to try on one of them, whatever it says is the best approach for them, and see how it goes and see if you agree. And then we'll come back next week and share. I testify to you that the Savior is all of his strengths combined. He is the perfect example. He is the divine nature. And as we magnify, don't worry so much about your weaknesses. Magnify your strengths. Help your children magnify their strengths. But teach them tools that their weaknesses do not become traps for them in their lives. And the Savior will show you how to do it. I testify to you that's true. In his name, amen.